Okay, once the temperatures start rising, I realized I was back to the same worn out rotation. Same tank, same shorts, same everything. So I gave my daily uniform an upgrade with Quince. Their pieces are easy, elevated, and somehow make me feel more put together without even trying. Like 100% European linen shorts and dresses from $30. Luxe swimwear, Italian leather platform sandals, and so much more. And the best part? Everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middlemen, Quince gives you luxury without the markup. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices in premium fabrics and finishes. Go get yourself the Oxford Relaxed shirt. I got mine in pale blue. You're going to wear it all the time and you're going to love it. Treat your closet to a little summer glow up with Quince. Go to quince.com/KKC for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/KateCasey to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/KateCasey.
Why are there ridges on Reese's peanut butter cups? Probably so they never slip from her hands. Could you imagine? I'd lose it. Luckily, Reese's thought about that. Wonder what else they think about. Probably chocolate and peanut butter.
The amazing Kate Casey.
Welcome back for another episode of Reality Life with Kate Casey, and welcome back for this Saturday series episode. Today, I'm joined by my friend Jess Rothschild. We've known each other for years because we were both podcasters covering Bravo shows. She produces and hosts a great podcast called Hot Takes and Deep Dives, where she interviews comedians, writers, TV showrunners, actors, and reality TV personalities. She's also the creator and executive producer and narrator of Finding Fire Island podcast. Her new podcast series is called Cult of Body and Soul. This is a 7-part series that explores how Soulcycle transcended fitness as it captured the New York City zeitgeist with ritual, candlelight, and the cult of personality. Now, for many, it's just a boutique spin class. But for others, it became something much bigger. So in her series, she dives deep into the cult-like world of Soulcycle, examining how a seemingly empowering wellness brand evolved into a high-intensity ecosystem of manipulation, obsession, and blurred boundaries. So to understand the story, you really have to go back to the beginning. Soulcycle was founded in 2006 by Ruth Zuckerman, Elizabeth Cutler, and Julie Rice, who opened their first studio on Manhattan's Upper West Side. With candlelit rooms, energetic playlists, and instructors that they elevated to guru status, the brand quickly developed a devoted following, with riders like Kelly Ripa, Chelsea Clinton, and Lady Gaga singing its praises. Soulcycle didn't just sell fitness, it sold transformation. By 2011, Equinox Group had acquired a majority stake in the company, fueling rapid expansion across the US and into Canada and the UK. At its peak in 2015, Soulcycle operated dozens of studios and was widely credited with reshaping boutique fitness. But success came with its complications. Zuckerman left in 2009 and co-founded Flywheel, which was a direct competitor. And then in 2016, Cutler and Rice also exited, selling their shares to Equinox for nearly $90 million each. As the brand grew, so did the scrutiny. Controversy also followed, from internal reports of instructor misconduct and a toxic work culture to public backlash against reports that an investor hosted a fundraiser for a re-election campaign. Suddenly, the brand that once promised empowerment was under fire. Soulcycle wasn't just building community. It was feeding into something bigger, the cult of exercise. And in a culture where self-worth is often tied to productivity, perfection, and body image, boutique fitness brands like Soulcycle became more than workouts, they became belief systems. I had such a great time talking to Jess about this passion that she's had for this project, literally working on it for years, and a devoted Soulcycle rider. Also, you've got to listen for the story at the end of the podcast about probably the most embarrassing thing that has ever happened to me as a podcaster, and Jess was there for it. So here is my interview with Jess. Jess, it makes sense that you made this because you might be one of the most fit human beings that I know in all of the world. You have arms Michelle Obama would be jealous about.
Well, can I tell you one thing? So I have a photo of myself at I must be like 5 years old. I think I'm graduating preschool, younger than 5. I think I'm like 3. I'm looking at it right now because it's framed. It's me in like a paper white like cap, right? Like I'm graduating and I have muscles.
I believe it.
So it's genetic. Like I was a little bit born this way.
Yeah.
But I play to my strengths.
I mean, it's bonkers. I had no idea the levels to which you were involved in the Soulcycle world.
This was my life. And I think that comes across.
You have never had addiction issues, but there is something that you said that a therapist told you that made sense.
I have addict energy.
Yeah.
So thank God I was just never interested in alcohol or drugs. Like, thank God, because you know what? If I were, I would take it to the extreme. So Thank God. So it's either like mine dial's either at 0 or 100.
Right.
So thank God it was just always set to 0 with like bad stuff. So I can really lean in the stuff I lean into. Sometimes it's negative. Like I can be very impulsive and I have compulsive addict energy, which is what I say. And that's why I'm attracted to those people.
Yeah.
Like I lean in when I sense that in somebody. I sense the connection.
Yeah. Well, let's walk back.
Okay.
Tell me about the first time you walk into a Soulcycle class.
Okay. Well, so I had actually I had started working out when I was like 21. I had never really worked out before. And
with your natural muscles.
With my 3-year-old guns in the photo. But I had never worked out before. I was young. And I signed up for my local gym, in my neighborhood, whatever, Crunch Gym, New York Sports Club, just the local gym. And I would take spinning classes there and I would hate it because the lights are on. It's like bright light and the instructor is not doing anything. And it's also, the instructor is just anybody. And there's no intentionality to the music. It's just a generic like spin class. There's no connection between what you're doing on the bike to the music, meaning like riding to the rhythm as if you are dancing and like hitting the beat. But I would go, for some reason, I would go and just like push myself through it. I don't know why. And then once I moved into Manhattan, a good friend of mine lived next door to the Upper East Side where like all the housewives live, like very close. And a lot of them went to that studio on the Upper East Side. And that my friend was going because she lived next door and she's like, oh, just come with me. That was the first Soulcycle class I took. And I didn't really think much of it. I was like, oh, it's fun. This is cool. Like the lights, like I loved the vibe, but I certainly wasn't like hooked. But I kept going. It was the same thing where like something is propelling me forward. Subconsciously, I don't know what. I mean, probably because it was all meant to be. And what wound up happening is I wound up just becoming obsessed with the lore of this company. It had only been around at that point for maybe like 4 or 5 years. My story starts in like 2011, but the company opened in like 2006, 2007, and very slowly started taking off. I used to just stare at the instructor, like the website. Like obviously there's no app. The iPhone wasn't invented, And I would look at the website and like look at the instructors and look at the schedule and actually feel intimidated, like knowing that I wanted to go, but feel that thing of like, oh my God, I don't want to feel like I'm having a heart attack again on the bike. Like I would feel this stress around it. But then I saw a photo of the woman who would eventually be my guru, my instructor. And it was that same thing. It like I said before, her name is Stevie Santangelo. And I saw the photo. She was new. That's why suddenly her photo popped up. And it was that psychic thing of, oh, I see an addict. I see somebody. I sensed it through the screen. And I went in and I took her class and that changed my life.
Did you take
Truly.
the Monday night class that she was given?
No, I'm not starting at 8:30 at night. No, it was a Saturday at 5 p.m. And at this point, I wasn't living in Manhattan. So the circumstances around this are quite strange. I'm at home. I lived in Queens, which is like a bar. It's, like Brooklyn, Queens. And so I would have to take a 40-minute subway into Manhattan. I was working in Manhattan, but wasn't living there because it was much cheaper to live in Queens. And so I was saving money, working in the city. And I literally told my girlfriend at the time, let's go to dinner. I'm like, I'm going to go in. I want to take this 5 p.m. Soulcycle class. She's like, you're fucking crazy. I'm like, but we'll go to dinner after. And that was the moment for me. It was her.
Wow.
And it was different. And that set me on my course.
So having taken spinning classes before, what set this one apart, just being in the room? And also walk us through what it's like to take a spin class. Like what is it about spinning that makes it a different kind of exercise?
So spinning and Soulcycle, they really perfected it. Like they took something that was like sort of annoying or just attracted a lot of like dancers and perfectionists. They took something that was sort of stressful and Soulcycle transformed it into performance art because they cast the instructors. That was the secret sauce of Soulcycle, was because one of the co-founders, Julie Rice, she was a talent agent in LA. Like she worked for Benny Medina, who, she knew how to take like J-Lo, Tyra Banks, and turn regular celebrities into 360 brands. And she was like, let's do this with instructors. She knew how to do it because she worked in Hollywood. And so she would literally lay out headshots of instructors and figure out who's going to work well teaching on the Upper East Side, meaning who's going to appeal to Ramona Singer and Sonia Morgan versus who's going to appeal to me living downtown, cut to now I'm downtown. Who's going to appeal to somebody like me? And plug those people into those neighborhoods at particular time slots. So that was the difference.
Listening to how I built this episode.
Yeah. Oh, tell me. Yeah.
I think that what struck me out is this quote. I think that we fundamentally saw two different things. I think we both felt that exercise did not have to be torture, that it could be joyful, and that by creating a place that was chic and that was aspirational and turning our instructors into more spiritual gurus than being drill camp sergeants, we felt that we could really create something that people would value.
That nails it. Yeah.
Let's talk about that idea. Spiritual gurus. Something that I would have never thought, an interesting way to look at an exercise instructor.
Do you take it? Are you into yoga at all?
Yeah, but I'm the kind of person that will just take a yoga class, or I've taken a spin class and then I leave. But I don't. I look at it as, burning calories and sweating. I never really see it as like a spiritual experience.
But yoga is a spiritual experience. Like yoga is it not?
Not for me.
Wow. Yoga is you're tapping into like the chakras, and yoga is meant to take you to a higher place. I guess it depends what type of yoga you're taking. It's like, maybe it depends what type, but certainly yoga is the most spiritual. It is the spiritual form of exercise. It's the closest thing to meditation.
I guess. Not for me.
Wow. You're like, can't relate.
But I think that's the point. That is the part that really stuck out to me. And I thought, not only is that a different way of looking at it, I think that what you're proving in this series is that they really achieved that. And that is the reason that they became so hugely successful, was that they looked at it that way. So I'm assuming that was really sort of the genesis for this project. And I'm surprised it hadn't been done before. So tell me how this project came to be and how long it took you to do it.
So years ago, before I ever had a podcast, before I ever watched Real Housewives, because that's the only reason that I fell into podcasting, was because I loved Real Housewives of New York, right? Like, my origin story. that was how I got into podcasting. So years before that was when I was at Soulcycle. And I used to say to people, I want to make, it was a combat. I used to I was at the brunch table saying, I'm going to make a documentary about Soulcycle, like as a joke.
Yeah.
But also in the same breath, how isn't there a documentary about Soulcycle? Like I would be literally frustrated. Like, how has this not been done? There's a documentary on the most boring shit. I mean,
Yes.
that one about LuLaRoe, are you kidding me? Like, I have watched the crappiest thing. Like, to me, and listen, to me, I did this because I think this is the most fascinating story ever told, right? So, like, I know that I'm maybe not I'm preaching to my own choir, but to me, this was the most fascinating story. And I knew there was more. And what I knew was, I knew precious little about what ultimately this became, but I knew there was a huge story there. Part of the reason it took me a little while to really like set the train in motion was I was like, there's got to be a reason. Like, am I going to be dancing in legal territory? And then I figured out a way to not dance in legal, how to strike the balance. And what I found out is they tried to do a reality show with the instructors, fell apart. They tried they actually filmed something 2 years ago about the spin wars, about like Peloton versus Soulcycle versus Flywheel, which were the three, or the Flywheel's out of business, but Peloton, obviously everybody now knows. But they filmed something and it's like in development hell right now. They filmed it and yet it's still not out. And also with that, nobody from Soulcycle would talk.
Wow.
And that's a big part of it, is the people from Soulcycle, the former employees, are very hesitant to talk.
Why do you think that is?
Because I think a lot of them felt very abandoned and without closure. And they hadn't yet reckoned with it themselves. As you listen on in the doc, you find out sort of like where things turned, and it happened when they sold. Basically, it went from being this like beautiful, like great energy, loving, these two founders, Julie Rice and Elizabeth Cutler, them taking care of everything. They were paid more than any other fitness instructors were. And then ultimately, years later, Julie and Elizabeth got a great opportunity to sell this company to Equinox, which I think anybody would do. And they each walked away with $90 million each. And when Equinox, which is a behemoth, acquired the company, it now becomes a corporation. And instructors the pay structure was changed a million times. They started not promoting people. They would literally eliminate tiers. Like, how there would be like senior instructor, master instructor. There would be tiers of your pay rate and your title. And they started eliminating certain tiers so that they could fire people, so that they didn't have to pay them more money, to start hiring younger people who would just do it for $40 a class versus people who were making over $200,000 a year.
Right.
So a lot of people, so that's on the instructor side. On the employee side, on like the corporate level and even just like front desk staff, when I reached out to those people, the immediate thing I said was, you can be anonymous. And that relaxed them immediately. And that's the beauty of podcasting, is you can anonymize. And so, and also I love the kind of fly on the wall vibe. Like, you don't need to know every single person's, it's a Greek chorus, in some parts. And I love that aspect of it, but they were hesitant. They wouldn't do it if they'd be named. Why? Because they're professionals. They're not looking why would they? Why would they? What's the incentive? They're not getting paid. They're not getting like a bunch of followers. They're not going to suddenly be an influencer because they dished about Soulcycle. They're Why would they talk? You know? So I think offering them anonymity gave them the opportunity to really let their guard down. And with me, really, I sold it to them being like, I really want to focus on the early era. And that was my gateway in. And those who were willing to talk about when shit turned, they ultimately felt comfortable and really like thanked me. Like they said it was the first time they'd gotten closure. They had felt abandoned by the founders and by what happened. And then they were treated so badly by their new quote unquote parents or their new leader. The chasm was too wide between what Soulcycle was at its core and Equinox. It was too wide a river.
Ladies, is everyone trying to fix their health concerns with unproven gummies and tricks? Well, thank goodness, Low Libido has a real clinically proven treatment. Low libido can be so frustrating, but there is a treatment called Addyi, ADDYI. Addyi is the first and only FDA-approved pill proven to boost sexual desire in certain premenopausal women. Isn't that great? A clinically proven option for your low libido that comes from a doctor, not a gas station. Learn more at Addyi.com and take charge of your sexual health with a treatment that's backed by science. Remember, that's Addyi, ADDYI.com.
Addyi, or flibanserin, is for premenopausal women with acquired generalized hypoactive sexual desire disorder, HSDD, who have not had problems with low sexual desire in the past, who have low sexual desire no matter the type of sexual activity, the situation, or the sexual partner. The low sexual desire is troubling to them and is not due to a medical or mental health problem, problems in the relationship, or medicine or other drug use. Addyi is not for use in men or to enhance sexual performance. Your risk of severe low blood pressure and fainting is increased if you drink 1 to 2 standard alcoholic drinks close in time to your Addyi dose. Wait at least 2 hours after drinking before taking Addyi at bedtime. Your risk of severe low blood pressure and fainting is also increased if you take certain prescriptions, over-the-counter or herbal medications, or have liver problems. Low blood pressure and fainting can happen when you take Addyi, even if you don't drink alcohol or take other medicines. Do not take if you are allergic to any of the ingredients in Addyi. Allergic reactions may include hives, itching, or trouble breathing. Sleepiness, sometimes serious, can occur. Common side effects include dizziness, nausea, tiredness, difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep, and dry mouth. See full PI and medication guide, including boxed warning, at Addyi.com/PI or call 844-PINK-PILL. Addyi.
That's Addyi, ADDYI.com.
At Mathis Home, we understand that your home is a reflection of you. And during our spring style event, we have fresh new looks that are waiting to make your home look and feel great at the lowest prices. With all the latest styles in bloom, you'll find savings in every department. Whether it's a clean and modern sectional or a rustic and traditional dining table, we have it in stock with fast and free delivery. Come find the look that's right for you during the spring style event at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
If you could talk about the cult of personality between the instructors and the riders, how did this dynamic shape the overall culture at Soulcycle?
It's why it was successful. It's why it was successful. When they taught people how to hook riders in the class, meaning, what do I mean by that? The way the music is constructed throughout a 45-minute ride, the first 3 songs in the training, the way they are taught to do this, they were built as seduction. They're slower. The music is slower. So it's not like you're immediately thrown into like your heart, you're spiking your heart rate. It's more doable. It's like you're jogging versus then running or sprinting. And there are moments in the class where they turn off all the lights and it's just candlelit, and the instructor gets off the bike and gets on the level with you. And with the candlelight and the sweat and the endorphins, and your inhibitions are now lowered because it's toward the end of the class, that is a moment where instructors, because so much has happened and the music, because of the ambiance that's now been set in the room, if they do certain things like looking at you in the eye, like touching your hand. Like, and also because there are candles around, they would move the candles during this.
How?
Because you can move the candle. They also light the candles.
But like, it feels like this is like a job that is there's so many moving parts.
It's
the lights and the music and the candles.
Here's the thing. It's theater.
Yeah.
It's theater. And that's what, well, let me finish this. This is my favorite part to talk about. This is why I was there. This is what I was there to be seduced. Like, this is what I loved. And you would see them light the candles at the beginning, or they would blow them out and then they would relight them. But I haven't seen this in years, but they would put a candle on your handlebars. Like
what?
On one person during this moment where the lights, and they're not talking, and it's just a very a particular song would be playing during this. It's kind of like the 11 o'clock number. It's like before the end of the class where it's again high energy. They would move the candle on your handlebars or like put it in front of you and let you blow it out.
I got to be honest with you. We're having two different experiences because you were enjoying this and I'd be like, what has just happened to me? I got to get out of here.
Really?
Yes.
No, if you got hooked, you would just go back and back. And that was it. I mean, so in terms of, that's what's happening in the room. Now, what's happening outside of the room is a whole different story. What's happening outside of the room is instructor. Well, first of all, everyone's like wanting to go to dinner with their instructor and like, am I a favorite?
Do they think that I'm a higher achiever? Should I be in the front of the room? Am I in the back of the room? Because I like to observe. But if I'm in the middle of the room, I'm a loser. All these
or if an instructor says, absolutely. And if instructor tells you, hey, like, I think you're really good enough to move up to the front row. Like, that's something.
That's like a promotion in your job.
Well, it's like, you're like, they're making you, do you know the term limerence?
Yes.
It's limerence.
Yeah.
Limerence is a psychological term that describes the feeling, sort of like when you have a crush on somebody. Yeah. Like you're not really dating the person, but you have a crush on them. And so you are sort of inventing in your mind who you think this person really is. That is not based in reality. And that feeling of like, I'm in love with them. No, you're in love with somebody who you made up.
The idea of it. You're in love with the idea of it.
You're in love with the idea. Is that, am I nailing the definition? Is that?
I think so.
Yeah. So there was this limerence that would happen. And what the real cult of personality would happen, which really, one of my best friends who I met at Soulcycle, my friend Sumi, who tells her story in the 3rd episode, she flew too close to the sun with it, and it exploded. That's what. And I was very delicate in telling her story. There's a lot more to it, but it explains how much money she was spending to you're paying to be around these people.
Well, and one of your guests said they had spent $10,000.
Yeah. Well, that's Sumi. Yeah. And she realized, like, that was when she first realized something's not quite, this isn't normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though her family had been, her friends and family were like, what is going on? Yes. And what's really interesting is a lot of straight women would have this with their female instructors.
That was very interesting. I mean, there was a reference to a Page 6 article that one of the instructors had one of the clients became so enamored by them, they left their husband for the instructor.
Yeah. A woman married to a hedge fund guy for many years, divorced him to be with Stacey Griffith, who is a very famous, you might recognize her face if you Google her name. She's like probably the most famous soul instructor. She was there from the very beginning. She's still there today. And she's the one who cut the COVID vaccine line.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
so that's that woman. And yeah, that's famous story. that this
By the
woman.
way, was Stacy okay with that? Or was she like, you're insane?
Okay with what?
The hedge fund wife leaving
No, I'm
her
sure she
husband.
was. No. Well, I don't know. I don't know her. Yeah, but that's she was with her. She was with that woman for like a decade. And then that woman was like a socialite. That's why it was making page 6, was because it's kind of like, well, why do they care if two people? Well, Soulcycle was really becoming a New York thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this woman was married to a very wealthy finance guy and was a socialite. So it becomes very Real Housewives of Soulcycle. There is
Totally.
that element of it. And they tried to make a reality show and again, couldn't follow. It seems like somebody was telling me yesterday, like, yeah, I'm like, why is it that they could never do this? And they're like,
they'd have to follow them outside of, because just to show like every episode in the spin, the spin studio probably
they would never allow
enough.
cameras in there.
Well, there you go. So where do you meet? Also, I had this question, and I know it sounds so silly, but you talk about how the invitation, like Stevie talks about that too, the invitation to join for dinner after a spin class.
Yes.
And how precious that was.
Yes. I was in
But everyone is in like a full flop sweat. And then you guys would go as a group to...
Well, we would shower at the studio. But no, we still looked a mess, but like it didn't matter. No, we would take class and then there's showers. Because Soulcycle also, imagine you're in an Apple store. Like it's modeled after kind of the Apple store, I think a little bit. Actually, I don't even know what came first because the iPhone, whatever. Regardless, it's all white and yellow and clean. And that's the whole vibe. It smells good. There's orchids, there's flowers. It smells good. Cleanliness is next to godliness, period. And so the showers are immaculate. So people would shower and then, or not, whatever. Like it didn't, we weren't going to like fancy places.
Okay.
That wasn't the point. The point was we're all together and it's community and we're friends.
Well, it makes it sound like the people in the neighborhood, especially with the anchor one, that it's like you guys are walking like you're part of a literal cult, like just walking in mass together after a class and disinterested in other people and really like wound up into this little spin world that you've created.
Yeah. And also we're all wearing like Soulcycle clothing. Like it's all like brand
right.
and the logo is like skull and crossbones. So like also in class, everyone at the height of it, I would say 100% of people in the class are wearing some sort of Soulcycle. Like I had like, there would be co-branded like with Soulcycle and Lululemon. So like Lululemon leggings, but then they'd put like the skull and crossbones on like a part of it. You know what I'm talking about. Nike, they do this all the time. And, or like tank tops, whatever it is, sports bra. And so, and then they also had like hoodies and like all this stuff. So like, and then you're wearing like jacket, like, but it also was the culture in New York City. It was very much a status symbol. So I don't think we looked crazy. It
does sound a little, I pledge allegiance to Soulcycle.
The irony is now today, no one would be caught dead in that stuff.
I remember around the same time, I was talking to my friend Kara, who was training me. And she said the difference between New Yorkers and people from LA is in New York, as far as her lens as a trainer, is in LA, they want to talk to you as you train them. And in New York, they'll say, don't talk to me. I want to sweat. And they'll come back for 2 training sessions a day.
Here's why. New York, type A personality.
Intense.
Yeah. Yeah. And
by the way, I'm in that bucket because I was like, I don't want to talk. Like, let's just work out.
And spinning in particular, for some reason, I think it's the correlation to dance. Spinning and dance and dancers, they both attract a similar personality type, which tends to be very disciplined, disciplined, perfectionistic. That is performance. That is the personality type that is either rider or then eventually becomes instructor.
Now the instructor part. Now, what is the significance of that training program and its impact on the company's internal dynamics?
This is the thing that I was most fascinated about. This is me, cut to me at the brunch table saying that this also was when I was saying I want to make a documentary. The other thing that I would literally say to friends is, I think I'm going to need to apply. I knew I didn't want to be an instructor. I knew I didn't want to be an instructor. But I did say, I think I should apply and like audition and go through the training program because
you're like a mole.
I needed to know. I had this burning curiosity to know what the director of training, and like she's still there today. She is still an instructor. She's the one, Janet. She is the star of my movie. And Janet was a character. She's always been a character. And I would say to people, what the fuck is Janet Fitzgerald saying to these people in a conference room for hours? I'm like, I gotta know. I need to know. I was obsessed with her. And also, I would know. Here's the funny thing. While I was, of course, I was friendly with a lot of different instructors. For some reason, while I did take Janet's class, I never said 2 words to her. All those years. No, sometimes I would see her in the locker room and like, I knew she was a huge Madonna fan. And so like, that was the only thing I would ever talk about. Be like, oh, like, what's your favorite? What do you think's the best Madonna tour? That's the only thing I ever said.
And when you asked that, were you nervous? Like you were like a fangirl? What's your favorite song?
No, I'm not like that. But there was a time where like literally she stripped down naked in front of me. Because this is her. She's very... Yeah.
Oh, like free bird. Like
free bird. She is a California girl. And also listen to her on the show. Like she just is putting it out there. And she strips down naked. And I'm like, what's your favorite?
What's your favorite Madonna song?
No, I was like, I'm like, okay, in your opinion, like what? Because I think she was touring at the time. I think Madonna was touring at the time. And I'm like, do you agree? I'm like, do you agree Blonde Ambition is the best tour? And she's like, no, I saw Confessions. I saw the Confessions tour in Paris, and that's the best tour. So we would like get into it on that level. But aside from that, I was like, all right, see ya. But whereas a friend of mine who's not in this series, and again, a friend who I met at Soulcycle, she really got in with Janet, and she would take Janet's class uptown. Janet would be teaching like on the Upper West Side. So like, again, where the Real Housewives of New York live. And then she'd be teaching another class back downtown. Janet would be like, get in the cab. Like my friend would get the invite to get in the cab.
And she's like, oh my God.
And my friend was dying in love with Janet. And like, I'm like, what? I'd get the text, I'm in the cab with Janet right now. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then they would go to yoga together because Janet was dating this woman who owned a yoga company.
Oh, so then you get that access to that whole yoga world, which is like right up your alley.
Yeah. But I never did it. I was so in with Stevie. Janet to me was always like, I'm like, I can't handle that. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to say to this woman other than like some Madonna talk. And the only other thing we had in common at that time, because we would be connected on Instagram, we both loved Tulum. So all these years we've stayed in contact. And any message back and forth would be either about Madonna or Tulum. Like she'd see like on Instagram that I'd be there. It should be like, oh, like how's the seaweed right now? Like, so we would have these things in common, but it wouldn't be deep. It'd be like, or maybe that is deeper than like.
Well, I think what it illuminates is just the adoration for these instructors as if they're like major celebrities, and the hierarchy that is really interesting.
To me, Janet was on a pedestal, and that's why literally and figurative, she was on a pedestal. And I would say to my friend, like, what are you talking? She's like, oh, we would just chit chat in the cab. And by the way, when I started this, Janet, I want to peek behind the curtain. I first texted Janet, hey, I want to talk to you about something. I DM'd her, hey, I want to talk to you about a project idea I have. And sends me her number. Hey, call me anytime. I'm like, oh my God.
And then you're texting all your friends. You're like, I am dying.
Well, no, my friend who was in the cab, and my friend Allie, who I met at Soul, and she was in love with Janet. And then after I talked to Janet to basically tell her my vision for this, and she was like, yeah, I'm in. And when I said I just talked to Janet for 30 minutes, but that was the initial thing I texted my friend who was so in love with Janet. But then I interviewed Janet for 2 hours. She's the only person I interviewed twice because she was my first interview. We did a 2-hour interview. And then when she left, she was immediately sending me voice notes. And she's like, I want to tell you this, this, and this. I'm like, perfect. Let me do this. Let me do all the interviews. And I'm definitely they're going to be open loops that I need to close. I'm like, and then we'll do like a 20-minute quickie. And so, for example, part of that 20-minute quickie was all the Ruth Zuckerman stuff. And Ruth was the third co-founder who got iced out and lost out on the $90 million, which you learn about that.
I know, but if you go back and listen to how I built this, you kind of understand why that happened.
But they're very, very delicate about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult. Listen, building companies are not for the faint of heart. And the sweat equity, the financial equity, I mean, it's much more complicated. I think that sometimes people don't have a real grasp of the complexities of building a company.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't know these two women, the women who co-founded Flywheel, the ones who are famous, the ones who are on the cover of Forbes magazine, okay? The ones who Julie Rice and Elizabeth Cutler, one was a shark in LA as a talent agent. The other one was a shark in real estate, and her husband was a finance guy.
Right.
These were experienced businesswomen.
Correct.
And the woman who introduced them was their joint spin instructor, and she was a spin instructor. And they had no idea, particularly the spin instructor, that this had potential. Who could predict that it?
Well, also when listening to them, they have such a great working relationship to the point where they got an office together after they sold to Equinox.
They still work together.
They work so well together. Yeah.
And that interview that you listened to was from 2019, so pre-pandemic, and either 2018 or 2019. And 2019. So that was pre-pandemic. And now for the past year and a half, they've been working on a new thing together. So they're in business again together. And it's interesting. And you know what did they mention in that how they go to a therapist together? They have
they did.
Yeah. So I think that was a result of how bad it went with Ruth. They were like, let's really make sure.
I think that speaks to their friendship and their working relationship.
Yeah. They work at it the way you'd work at a marriage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they both looked at the business like a child.
Yes.
You know those creepy stories that give you goosebumps? The ones that make you really question what's real? Well, what if I told you that some of the strangest, darkest, and most mysterious stories are not found in haunted houses or abandoned forests, but instead in hospital rooms and doctors' offices? Hi, I'm Mr. Ballin, the host of Mr. Ballin's Medical Mysteries, and each week on my podcast, you can expect to hear stories about bizarre illnesses no one can explain, miraculous recoveries that shouldn't have happened, and cases so baffling they stumped even the best doctors. So if you crave totally true and thoroughly twisted horror stories and mysteries, Mr. Ballin's Medical Mysteries should be your new go-to weekly show. Listen to Mr. Ballin's Medical Mysteries on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
Hey, I'm Mike Corey, the host of Wondery's podcast, Against the Odds. In each episode, we take you to the edge of some of the most incredible adventure and survival stories in history. In our next season, it's 1980, and in the Pacific Northwest, the long dormant volcano Mount St. Helens is showing signs of life. Scientists warn that a big eruption is coming, but a restricted zone around the mountain is limited by politics. On May 18th, hikers, loggers, reporters, and researchers are caught in the blast zone as the volcano erupts. They find themselves pummeled by a deadly combination of scorching heat, smothering ash, and massive mudslides. The survivors have to find their way to safety before they succumb to their injuries, or face another eruption. Follow Against the Odds on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. Binge the entire season ad-free right now only on Wondery Plus. Start your free trial in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify today.
You alluded to it earlier when you sell a business. She said, because I listened to every interview, both of them separately and individually has ever done, and for part of my research for this. And Elizabeth Cutler said, selling it was like ripping my heart out and leaving it on the middle of Fifth Avenue for just buses to run over.
Well, also you build this company up and then it gets sold. And typically, they have you kind of hang on for a little bit. And you have to make peace with the company that I built will never be the same. And they won't need me in the same way that they always did. And that's a hard thing to make peace with because it's been such a huge part of your life. And I respect the fact that they said, this is a relationship that we have worked on for so long, and we know how each other works so well. The idea of not working together would seem bizarre.
Yeah. Actually, one of them in the aftermath of selling in 2016, one of them, the talent agent, she actually went on to work for Weight Watchers as like a brand consultant. She went on to work for Weight Watchers, and then, believe it or not, are you sitting down? WeWork.
Yeah.
WeWork.
Oh, well, that makes sense too. Because I was looking up their company now, and it does have a very WeWork kind of vibe to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting. But then obviously both of those exploded. And so then they wound up. And the other one wound up just taking time off to like bask in the glow of $90 million, which is what I would do.
Well, there are two different kinds of CEO personalities.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there are some that absolutely enjoy their life. And then there are others that are like, well, what's my next project?
Yeah. Yeah.
This most interesting part of the story for me is how everyone really became so enmeshed in each other's lives.
Yeah.
Which I've never had that experience. I kind of, like I said, I just show up, I take a class, I leave. And the complications of that when you build a business like that and not personally getting invested in people's lives, because I think that line's pretty murky.
Yeah.
They seem to have done a very good job of that because they probably had each other to lean on. But the instructors, like listening to them talk about the loss of Claire Veronica Walsh and how devastating it was, I think it's also kind of like a nice reminder that the importance of boundaries when you work at a company. I mean, that's the reason they have HR departments, because it really does get tricky when you work with someone and your lives bleed together so much. Do you think that they have changed? I mean, obviously they sold to Equinox, but even the people that worked at that company, was that a life lesson for them of like, we got, as you said, a little too close to the sun?
Well, I think the founders, they always had very clear boundaries. Mm-hmm. Very clear. Even with Janet, even though Janet was there, was Julie's muse, and like Soulcycle would not exist without Janet Fitzgerald. Even there was a boundary. Like they weren't like hanging out at the apartment and like going to brunch. It was a business relationship. So the founders and corporate always had very clear boundaries. However, instructors, no, I think instructors have gotten married to each other. No,
wow.
No. I mean, I think it just depends. I think it just depends. Instructors have married each other. I mean, so many people, writers have married each other. Writers have had or instructors have had affairs with married riders. I mean, every which way you want to do it, there's been, it's a place of community. Like, and it really fostered community. And then that's why it was successful, was because these people, like in the last episode, I love when a guy who I interview, his name is Miles, and he's fabulous throughout the whole series. He worked on the corporate end, and he opened studios all around the country, even in DC. And he got invited to the White House Christmas parties when the Obamas were in office. And he said, I love when he says, he goes, some of those people are still my best friends today. He's like, we went to war together.
Well, you mean war on the spin bike?
No. He works on the corporate, like opening the studios, just like the process of like running the studio was like being in a war zone, because the amount of people you're dealing with, and
the people that were enraged when they didn't get a class.
Well, you're now just imagine 50 Ramona singers,
right? Yikes.
By the way, Sonia Morgan wound up being banned from Soulcycle.
Well, are we surprised?
No.
I'm like, she actually could get through 5 minutes on a bike.
I know. But Ramona used to go also. I mean, Kelly Ben-Simone, like I was with her
I believe that.
In a class in Soho. They all did it. Like everyone was doing it. But the Sonia thing, so there are more episodes. So I gave Kate the first 5, which really, that's the story. It's like we kind of put a button on the story. But I have 2 bonus episodes that are literally, if you just want to hear the tea, if you want non-stop gossip from like a bitchy queen, me and like a few like gays that I've rounded up, who is just a fire hose of gossip, I got that for you. Just stuff that didn't fit into like, I'm making a piece of art here. So like, it can't all be like Sonia.
The added nuggets.
It can't just all be Sonia Moore, like we're trying to do a thing here, but that's waiting for you in the bonus episode.
Well, I love the one John Hill's like, people would leave rehab and it's like, you could smoke cigarettes or you could watch TV or you could go take a class. Too good.
I see John, I mean, he's now in New York a lot. And I would run into him all the time at Barry's boot camp, which do you have Barry's where you are?
We do. Yep.
So it's so also in so anyway, to finish the John Hill thought, I would run into him in Barry's boot camp, and now we take classes together. We've become, genuinely friends, and we take classes together. Like we're both really into working out, obviously. And he got into soul because he's now public about, he wrote a one-man show about it. He went to rehab. He had a pill addiction, and he went to inpatient rehab in Brooklyn, and that rehab center had a partnership with Soulcycle where they could ride for free.
Oh, anytime they want. They did that.
Anytime they want.
Yeah.
Which of course, now you're transferring it into another addiction.
But at least it's not,
it's
worse
better than
yes. The others.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. This is my last question, and I don't know how you're going to answer this.
Okay.
Give me 3 great songs for a spin class.
That's an amazing question. Okay. Number 1, Gypsy by Lady Gaga.
Okay.
Number 2, Criminal by Fiona Apple.
What part of the class is that played?
That would be the first song.
That's the first. You're starting off with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because what you can do, they call it a waltz, like Criminal, or even like Shadowboxer by Fiona Apple is a waltz. It's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I mean, I'm speeding it up, but like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's the speed of like Shadowboxer and Criminal. So that's how it's like a slower song. Gypsy by Gaga. I'm sure you know that song. That would be the going home song. So that's like after they move the candles around and seduce you and make you fall in love with you, then there's like the going home song, which is the last. That's, I would say, Lady Gaga, Gypsy. Another great song, I say this in the bonus episode, a song that I feel was like built and engineered to ride. Do you know the song Bitch I'm Madonna?
No. Yeah, maybe I do.
It's on Rebel Heart. It's a great like modern Madonna song. Or let me think of another one. I would say, let me think of another Gaga song. Oh, great Gaga song to ride to would be, Abracadabra is a great song. And you know what Janet does? Because spoiler alert, Janet got me back. So I've been going once a week to Janet's class, which I reveal in the last episode. And Janet, because she was a dancer and choreographer, she has you do the choreography on the bike to the Abracadabra dance.
Oh, wow.
So she's like, you're not it's because it's fun. And I say in the first episode of it, like the choreography is like, it's just mostly useless theatrics, but it's fun. Like So I would say modern day today, cut to 2025, Janet is killing it with Abracadabra and like teaching the choreography in the class.
Wow. I can't even imagine that, but
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
As we leave,
yes,
I want you to do two things. I want you to tell everybody where they can obviously listen to the episodes and follow you. And then we need to briefly tell them about the phone call I made to you when I interviewed the wrong Isaac.
Oh my God. Okay. So this show is called Cult of Body and Soul. And you can listen to it on all podcast platforms. And it's all on YouTube. My video editor who cut together the trailer, which is brilliant. The trailer is so great, how she put it all together. I said, listen, I told my video editor, listen, I need to put something on YouTube. My instruction to her was, I don't care if you just have a bird flying in the sky for each episode. It just needs to live on YouTube somehow. Because some people they only use YouTube. And she doesn't know this from anything. She knows nothing of this subject matter. But she's a great video editor. She's like, so I did wind up matching the video to the audio. She's like, I just found footage of Janet and John Hill and like so you can watch it. Listen, is it a professional level documentary as if you'd be watching on Netflix? No. But if you want to see what these people look like and really
I did.
Get inside.
I did.
So what of those first two, like did you watch some of the video?
Yeah, I have, because it's important for me to have the visual, like to put the faces.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know John Hill, but
yeah,
I think it's helpful if you're someone like myself who's like, okay, this is why I could never be a therapist, because I'd be like, can you show me your family pictures? Like, it's important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the point, all of that to say, is all podcast platforms, Cult of Body and Soul. And if you do want to watch it on YouTube.
Okay.
As well.
And where can people follow you on social media?
JESS X NYC.
Okay. So I called Jess because I wanted to interview Isaac Mizrahi. And I had gone to Instagram and looked up Isaac Mizrahi and sent a DM. And then I got an email or a note back. And then I emailed and I talked to his team. And they said, he's in Paris at Fashion Week, but we can do it. It was about a supermodel doc and I was very excited. And then we set it up and then the Zoom begins and the person in the screen is not Isaac Mizrahi. And I have absolutely no idea who the person is. And instead of just saying, listen, I think there's been some sort of mistake on my part, I went through with this interview and asked them, did you watch the documentary? Yes, I loved it. Great. And then I'm like trying to ask questions to get some context clues. Still have no idea. I end the interview. I go to Instagram and I realize that I, in my haste, put Isaac Mizrahi and somebody else named Isaac came up and Jess followed him. So I reached out and I called you. And what did I say?
You said, I just interviewed Isaac Boots thinking he was Isaac Mizrahi. Now, have you yet put it together who Isaac, because I mentioned Isaac Boots in the last episode. Do you now get
Yeah.
So for people listening, and people may genuinely know who Isaac Boots is. Isaac Boots, his real name is Isaac Calpito, but his stage name is Isaac Boots. Isaac Boots is the most successful former Soulcycle instructor. Because
unbelievable.
He's an instructor who didn't quite make it at Soulcycle. He had a small following, but he certainly wasn't selling out classes. But I loved his class. That's how I met him. I loved his class. He was so good. He was such a good instructor.
I could see it.
And we became friendly. And of course, I've, followed his career ever since, and we would hang out sometimes. And cut to he leaves Soulcycle. Then cut to it's the pandemic. 2 weeks into the pandemic, he gets on Instagram and starts teaching he has his own class that he would teach on the side called Torched. Mm-hmm. And this explodes. It explodes. Like Kelly, he was Kelly Ripa's personal trainer, is Kelly Ripa's personal trainer. And Lisa Rinna loved his Soulcycle class in LA. So she would be like tuning in. Everyone's at home on their phones. Oh, Isaac. So all these celebrities who knew him either through Soulcycle or whatever, they start shouting it out. He explodes into an actual phenomenon. And New York Times headlined him, full profile, the breakout star of virtual fitness. And he is now, the amount of money, Isaac, I talk to him all the time, but
good for him.
He made it. He made it. And we talked when I told him that I was doing this, and we talked on the phone, and he's like, I wasn't meant to be a star at Soulcycle. I was meant to be a star.
Good life lesson.
And I loved how he said that. And that was where I got that line of some people weren't meant to be stars at Soulcycle. And it imbued it with that energy. So that is who Kate interviewed thinking was Isaac Mizrahi. But no.
And you go, what? You got a better one in the end.
All roads go back to Soulcycle.
Truly. I was like, listening to that, I'm like, you got to be, you can't make this stuff up. It's too good.
Yeah. There you go.
Moment. Well, thank you, my friend.
Oh my God, this is so fun.
The amazing Kate Casey.
I want to thank my great guest, Jess, and remind you to click subscribe. Please leave a 5-star review. Get in the Facebook group, Reality Life with Kate Casey. Guess what? I've got bonus episodes. I'm going to give you more behind-the-scenes stories and deep dives. Go to Patreon, patreon.com/Kate Casey. Some of you go, I'm not going to do that. Well, you're missing out. So you got to go check that out. Patreon.com/Kate Casey. Also, my What to Watch list of what to watch in unscripted TV is available at katecasey.substack.com. You've got to make sure that you are subscribed. Make sure that you check me out on social media. I'm on Instagram at KatecaseyCA, TikTok, it's Kate Casey, and Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky at Kate Casey. Check back on Monday for my What to Watch list.
Running a business is hard work. Building your website shouldn't be. With Wix, you can express your ideas, give direction, then leave the heavy lifting to AI, from site creation to branded content and images. Have fun with the details, customize what you want the way you want, and manage your whole business from a centralized dashboard with expert AI tools. Build, scale, and enjoy the incredible results. You can do it all yourself on Wix.